So when we're talking about DevOps, we need to lay a little bit of groundwork and why use DevOps practices. We've got to get on the same page. So whenever you go about work, you have an approach to that work, and in software, historically, there's two major ways to approach those projects: waterfall, which we're not really going to get into today, and an agile, more recent development. And a lot of us have fielded projects um, using these methods, these approaches. But compared to DevOps, they typically can, while they can produce good outcomes, they typically take longer or miss out on some of the features that we want to add. So we're going to go from that and start looking at, what is DevOps specifically. So DevOps is short for development and operations working together, and that takes two forms here. There's two main aspects. One is a personnel aspect, and that's involving operations staff, typically with testing. So the end user that gets their hands on the end product of the software project, your Ignition application, getting them in the loop testing is typically something that's not done, right? Instead, we throw it over the fence. Well, we want to change that. In order to do that effectively, we need an environment that replicates production, right? There's no sense in a test that doesn't really apply. So that's the personnel side. On the technical side, yes, there's technical involved in that replicated environment. But on the technical side, we need some mechanisms for moving changes from development all the way through to production so that we can properly evaluate that. We'll talk more about that. But we need those mechanisms for managing those changes. So DevOps is a bit of a hot topic in the software world. Historically, it's been something that fell to other folks or a variety of folks, maybe a developer, QA, IT. Now it's becoming its own space with its own practices and kind of maturing. And part of the evidence of that is this webinar, I guess. But really, we want to think about some key things here. This process approach to delivering end user needs, new features, things like that. And I think that this is a logical next step from an agile framework for fielding software. And this last point here on this slide, there's a dichotomy between stable software and feature delivery, right? We could have a very stable project. Maybe that's initially put in place and then we never change it, right? Well, there's an opportunity that's lost there because the needs of projects often change over time, or the needs of users change over time. But on the flip side of that, we could have a very open and dynamic project, and DevOps really strikes a nice balance here. So we want highly stable software, but we also want rapid feature delivery. Well, the Ignition platform specifically is very well suited to the task for several reasons. Obviously, the licensing model is very advantageous in this sense. Also, the flexibility about the host systems, right? As we'll see here in a little bit. But the fact that you can pretty much run Ignition anywhere is always a big plus. Also, with 8.0 and 8.1, integration with Git and other such tools really empowers this DevOps framework. Okay, so why use DevOps practices? We've talked around DevOps a little bit, some of the background, but now let's talk about some of the benefits of the practices. Obviously, change management is part of your risk management, and DevOps provides this framework for deploying code. First item here is really isolating development and test from production. Boy, if you saw all of the examples of failure in this point that I see, from tech support, right? The old joke that I only test my code in production. Well, that's not acceptable, right? For your organizations or your customers' organization. Um, so by utilizing a DevOps approach, utilizing this framework, we can document code movement and project resources and changes between environments, and those those gates or milestones where we move resources between environments give us review opportunity as well. So hopefully this is taking shape in your mind here. We'll see some practical examples here in a minute, how we can properly break up this problem, and using this approach, achieve both higher stability and better feature delivery. Now, one of the key failure points that I see in a lot of customer projects is with deployment. So the old joke, hey, it worked in test or it worked on my system. It's a tired joke in software circles. We've probably all said it, but that's not acceptable for your production use, right? Especially when other people, your business is relying on this. So one of the key wins that most people walk away with from adopting a DevOps framework and approach is the ability to rigorously test those deployment procedures and to test deployment to ensure success there, so we don't have that angry Monday morning kind of situation where production is down. Now, at this point, it's worth pointing out that there is a learning curve with the DevOps approach and framework, and I myself and Ken, I think both would recommend that if you're not familiar with this, this is a great time to involve a certified systems integrator. So there are specific tools that will be on display today. There are of course other tools as well in the space, but a systems integrator that has experience leveraging several projects like this can really accelerate your organization's project environment capability using this framework. So typically these are shorter term projects, really great opportunity to leverage someone else's experience, get your team up to speed here.